You don't have to manifest in steps. You can assume it right now and be with them right now. But I can explain how this is possible and how we may not have already seen it in our reality because of our dependence on the steps. So, when we're manifesting, sometimes our end state feels a little too good to be true. It feels like it's something that is so far off and so far away, right? We feel as if there is a distance between who we are and where we want to go. And so in this case, it's the transition of us being in a single state to being with our specific person. And during the process, you will find that our attention and energy mostly focus on small wins and small successes. Or, I mean, small wins, because every single success and every single win is something very good. But you'll find us focusing more on a text message or a date or marriage. And if you were to think about quantum leaping to your manifestation immediately right now, that might seem very strange or very weird or very odd. For example, just take a moment and think about you being with your specific person and having them propose to you tonight. Now, depending on your belief system, this will either feel very uncomfortable and weird, maybe something we want, but still something uncomfortable, or it will feel like something is expected. And this usually relates to how we feel the previous steps have been with our manifestation. And so we might be asking, why then do we focus or create these steps during the process? Because technically, there is nothing wrong with this. There is no problem with manifesting in steps, but there is a reason that our mind wants to do it, and how we, if we want to quantum leap to the outcome that we want, as soon as we realize this, everything will change. So, what's the purpose of steps? And the purpose of steps is to feel as if we've gone a distance from our previous sense of self. And the further distance we feel we have from our previous sense of self, the more or less defined we feel we will be to that single state. But let me put it in a way that might not be so confusing. So imagine it like this way. You, as a creative individual, can be and embody anything at any given time. You could marry your specific person tonight and then be completely single tomorrow. But that thought process is kind of scary, right? We don't really want to accept that we have the ability to change everything around us at any point in time. And so our mind, in order to compensate, starts to think of it in steps or as a distance away from our previous sense of self. If you imagine it like a distance that you've traveled, let's say you're traveling up a mountain, who you truly are has the ability to be at the top of the mountain, at the bottom of the mountain, midway up the mountain, and everywhere in between instantaneously at any given point in time. You have the ability to be with your specific person now, but that doesn't really make us feel confident in our state if we just snap our fingers and end up at the top of the mountain. That's why our mind can actually stick to these steps in order to feel more comfortable with the progress. But the point of this video is to understand that, one, steps are okay if we want to increase the confidence that we have in our manifestation, but two, that they're entirely unnecessary. And if you want to quantum leap or get to the outcome that you want, you just have to become comfortable with the uncomfortable. You have to become comfortable with the idea that you can change your reality entirely right now, and there's actually nothing stopping you. Because again, this idea is very strange and worrisome to us, because it's not that we're worried that we're going to immediately manifest a marriage. The worry is that once we manifest that we could instantly pop back into a previous state. And so what do? We again take time to process it. We take time to progress. We think we can move closer to our manifestation, because the further up the mountain you move, if you do it in little transitions, the less likely you will feel to return back to that previous state, right? You feel as if there's distance and it takes time and effort and energy to kind of move back. But I have an idea that can help you with this process. Remember, it is almost entirely impossible to regress in manifestation. Not even almost, I would say it is completely impossible to regress, meaning go back to a previous state that you no longer wanted to be in or that you learned to grow out of. Because as you begin to grow, you gain more knowledge, you gain a further understanding. The state that you want becomes something that is very dominant in your mind. And thus, what does that mean? Any other state becomes less dominant. So as you begin to assume the state of being with your specific person, if you can accept that your mind will not want to regress, you will no longer have this need for steps. And then you'll be able to either transition in steps at a much faster rate or completely get to your end state immediately. Because truly, according to the law of assumption, there is nothing stopping you at all. Nothing is stopping you from being totally different now. But again, our ego thinks that's a hard or difficult transition because it thinks that we're just going to respond or return back. So what I want you to do is become more comfortable with the idea of your specific person reaching out to you tonight. Become more comfortable with your specific person asking you to marry them. I know, again, it will feel exciting and awesome and amazing in the process of actually achieving it and seeing it happen outside of you. But become comfortable with massive and great or amazing things happening in a very quick amount of time. Because as you begin to change states, of course, everything is exponential, and it makes sense then because you'll find that once you start to assume the state, everything comes much more progressively faster as you begin to move forward. But that's just because we start to move up faster in our steps because we are more comfortable with the state and understanding that we are less likely to return back to the previous state. But if we can again become more comfortable with that outcome, everything will happen automatically. And so you might think, so well, how do we do this? How do we act this out? How do we utilize this right now? And one is, remember, you have the ability to be anything you want now. I then want you to think of your end state and contemplate it and ask yourself questions like, what if this were to happen today? What if this were to happen within the next hour? What if this were to happen in the next minute? What would I do after that? And the comfortability of after that is how we actually become comfortable with no longer utilizing steps in the process, and then we quantum leap to the outcome you want. Because when you are comfortable with the process and comfortable with the outcome and what comes after, then you'll realize, oh, this is exactly what I wanted, and my mind will automatically keep me in this state. And so this is your trick and strategy to overcoming all of these steps, overcoming everything in between, and just going to where you want. Now, again, I want to say, like multiple times, it's not a bad thing to manifest in steps. There's no problem with that. Of course, you have the ability to be anything, so you can just go to the outcome you want, but manifesting in steps is not a problem at all. If it's something that produces or increases your confidence or your self-efficacy, if you will, then that's something I would absolutely do. There is no problem with that. Sometimes the idea of the progress or process of traveling from where you are to where you want to go in itself is something very rewarding. Like, think about manifesting being married to your specific person. You wouldn't technically want to quantum leap or jump past all of your dates, all of the intimate moments you guys share, the anniversaries that you have. You would never want to skip that, right? That would be something that you would enjoy. And so if you think of the process, that's the same thing. So just remember to enjoy the process, enjoy everything. Remember, you can skip it if you want, but you don't need to. And as always, I always want to give an example of this. So here's an example of someone who immediately after one of our coaching sessions ended up running into their specific person as a result of that. Now, before the point, they may have thought all this stuff needed to occur. They needed to speak with their specific person, ask them out, do this or do that, but only to realize that actually the expedited process is always available to them if they were just going to choose it. And I like that they also joke that it's just like the success stories that I post in all of my other videos, because you have the capability of manifesting and creating this now. It's not something you have to wait for. It's not something that has to take time, take effort, take energy. Remember, in the mountain metaphor, you have the ability to teleport to the top of the mountain or anywhere that you want. So if you ever find yourself stuck in a state, remember, you don't have to be there if you don't want to. We just have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable of massive success coming in. Because I know it sounds crazy because nobody believes me during the process, but this has happened a lot. So when it occurs to you, remember, your specific person being obsessed with you is a night and day difference from what you might be experiencing now. Now, I will say, behind the scenes, they are obsessing over you. Like, everything they do, everything they say is always laced with this obsession. But to see them, have them be comfortable with showing it and expressing it outright might be a very different and weird experience. So that's why to contemplate it first, get ready for it, prepare yourself for it, because you can then shift very drastically in a very short amount of time if you can be comfortable with this. If you did have any questions on this idea or had more questions about the idea of manifesting in steps, make sure to comment them down below. If you did have any questions that you didn't want to post publicly, or successes or anything amazing happening with your manifestation, remember, you can also reach out to me on my website at kyleaugustcoaching.com. And as always, thank you so much for stopping by today. Thank you for leaving a thumbs up on this video. Thank you for subscribing, and I can't wait to see you in my next video tomorrow with your success story.